The water was rising faster than Brielle Johnson had ever imagined possible. One moment she'd been driving home from her double shift at the diner, exhausted but grateful for the tips that would help pay next month's rent. The next moment, the street had transformed into a churning river, dark and violent, swallowing cars like toys. Her little sedan had stalled in water that reached the door handles, then the windows, and now she stood on the roof, watching the world dissolve into chaos. The rain hammered down so hard it felt like stones hitting her skin. Brielle's red waitress uniform clung to her body, soaked through, her dark curls plastered to her face. She could barely see through the sheets of water, but she could hear everything. Car alarms, screaming, the roar of the flood that sounded like a living beast. She wasn't supposed to be here. She should have left work earlier. Should have listened to the weather warnings she'd been too busy to check. Now she was trapped, standing on top of her car, watching the water level creep higher with each passing second. The roof beneath her feet was slippery, and she had to crouch low to keep her balance as the current tried to tip the vehicle over. That's when she saw him. A man in a navy suit was thrashing in the water about 30 feet away, being carried downstream by the vicious current. His arms flailed wildly as he struggled to keep his head above the surface. Even from a distance, Brielle could see the terror on his face. He went under once, then came back up, coughing and gasping. Brielle's heart stopped. Nobody else was around. The street was empty except for abandoned cars and rising water. She looked around desperately for help, but there was none. The man went under again, and this time he didn't come back up right away. She didn't think. She just moved. Brielle dove off the car roof into the churning water. The current grabbed her immediately, dragging her under. She kicked hard, fighting to the surface, her lungs burning. When her head broke through, she gulped air and started swimming toward where she'd last seen the man. The current was impossibly strong, pulling her in directions she didn't want to go. Her arms ached within seconds and her legs felt like lead. She saw a hand break the surface about 10 feet away. Brielle swam harder than she'd ever swum in her life, her body screaming in protest. She reached the man just as he was going under again. Her fingers closed around his suit jacket and she pulled with everything she had. His head came up and he gasped for air, his eyes wild and unfocused. He was a white man in his early 30s, with dark hair and strong features that were twisted in panic. He grabbed onto her, nearly pulling them both under. "Stop fighting me," Brielle shouted over the roar of the water. "I've got you. Just hold on." She could barely keep both their heads above water. The man was heavy and the current kept trying to rip them apart. Brielle looked around frantically and spotted a traffic light pole about 20 feet away. If she could just reach it, they might have a chance. She started swimming sideways, using the current instead of fighting it, dragging the man with her. Her muscles burned. Water filled her mouth and nose. She couldn't breathe right. Everything hurt. But she kept going because stopping meant dying, and she wasn't ready for that. Neither was this stranger who'd been swept into her life by a flood. Her hand hit metal. The pole. Brielle grabbed it with both hands, wrapping her arm around the man's chest to keep him close. They both clung to the pole, gasping and shaking. The water swirled around them, trying to pull them back in, but she held on. "Stay with me," she said to the man, whose eyes were starting to close. "Don't you dare give up." He mumbled something she couldn't hear. His grip on the pole was weakening. Brielle looked around and saw a building about 30 feet away with a fire escape. The lowest level was above the waterline. If she could get them there, they'd be safe. "We're going to swim to that building," she told him. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. They let go of the pole and swam. Brielle kept one arm around the man, using the other to pull them forward. The current fought them every inch of the way. Her vision started to blur. Her arms felt numb. But she could see the fire escape getting closer. 20 feet. 15. 10. Her hand hit the metal ladder. She grabbed it and pulled them close, then pushed the man toward it. "Climb," she ordered. He tried, but his arms gave out. Brielle got behind him and pushed, using every bit of strength she had left. Somehow they made it up the ladder to the platform. They collapsed on the metal grating, both of them coughing up water and shaking violently. Brielle rolled onto her side and looked at the man. His eyes were closed and he wasn't moving. Panic shot through her. She crawled over to him and put her ear to his chest. He was breathing but barely. "Hey," she said, shaking his shoulder. "Wake up. Please wake up." He didn't respond. His skin was pale and his lips had a blue tint. Brielle knew she needed to get help, but she didn't have her phone. It was somewhere in her flooded car. She looked around and saw lights in the building above them. Someone had to be up there. She left the man on the fire escape and climbed up to the next level, then pounded on a window. A woman appeared, her eyes going wide when she saw Brielle. The window opened. "Help," Brielle managed to say. "There's a man. He needs help." The woman nodded and disappeared. Brielle climbed back down to the man. She sat beside him, keeping watch, making sure he was still breathing. Her whole body shook from cold and exhaustion, but she stayed alert. She'd saved him from the water. She wasn't going to lose him now. Minutes later she heard voices. People came down the fire escape with blankets and a first aid kit. They wrapped the man in blankets and checked his pulse. Someone wrapped a blanket around Brielle too, but she barely noticed. She was watching the man, waiting for him to open his eyes. Finally he did. His gaze was unfocused at first, then it landed on her. Recognition flickered in his eyes, followed by confusion, then something that looked like gratitude. "You saved me," he whispered, his voice rough. Brielle nodded, too exhausted to speak. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you." She managed a small smile. "You're welcome." Emergency sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Help was coming. They were going to be okay. Brielle looked out at the flooded street below, at the water that had almost killed them both, and felt a wave of relief so strong it made her dizzy. They'd survived. Against all odds they'd survived. She didn't know who this man was or why he'd been out in the flood. All she knew was that she'd jumped into those deadly waters without hesitation because someone needed help. And somehow that split-second decision was about to change both their lives forever. The man was still looking at her, his eyes full of questions and gratitude. Brielle looked back at him, wondering the same things. Who was he? What had he been doing out there? And why did she feel like this moment, this rescue, was the beginning of something she couldn't yet understand? If this story has touched your heart so far, could you live with yourself knowing you didn't take 2 seconds to subscribe and comment below? What would you have done if you saw someone drowning? Would you risk your life like Brielle did? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next between these two. The emergency shelter smelled like wet clothes and disinfectant. Brielle sat on a cot with a scratchy wool blanket wrapped around her shoulders, holding a cup of hot tea someone had given her. The warmth felt good against her cold hands, but she couldn't stop shaking. Her body hadn't quite caught up with the fact that she was safe, that she wasn't fighting the current anymore, that she could breathe without water filling her lungs. Around her, the shelter buzzed with activity. Families huddled together on cots. Volunteers moved through the aisles with food and supplies. Children cried. Adults talked in low, worried voices. Everyone here had lost something to the flood. Some had lost everything. Brielle thought about her apartment. It was on the 3rd floor, so it was probably okay, but she had no way of knowing for sure. Her car was definitely gone, along with her phone and wallet. She had nothing but the soaked red uniform she was wearing and a borrowed blanket. But she was alive, and that was more than some people could say tonight. She looked across the shelter to where the man she'd saved was being examined by paramedics. He was sitting up now, looking much better than he had on the fire escape. Someone had given him dry clothes, a simple blue shirt and gray pants that looked expensive even in the chaos of the shelter. He was talking to the paramedics, nodding at whatever they were saying. Brielle wondered again who he was. His suit had looked expensive before the flood ruined it. His watch, which he'd somehow kept on his wrist through everything, looked like it cost more than her rent. But that didn't tell her anything about him as a person. Rich people got caught in floods just like everyone else. A volunteer approached her cot. "How are you feeling, honey?" "I'm okay," Brielle said. "Just tired." "You did an amazing thing tonight," the volunteer said. "That man over there, he's been asking about you. Says you saved his life." Brielle glanced over at him again. As if sensing her gaze, he looked up and their eyes met. He said something to the paramedics, then stood up and started walking toward her. The paramedics tried to stop him, but he waved them off. He stopped a few feet from her cot, and for a moment they just looked at each other. Up close, in better light, Brielle could see him more clearly. He was probably in his early 30s, with dark brown hair that was still damp and messy from the flood. His eyes were a striking blue-gray, intense and intelligent. He had a strong jaw and the kind of face that probably made people take him seriously in business meetings. "Hi," he said, his voice still a little rough. "I don't think we properly introduced ourselves. I'm Gabriel Foster." He held out his hand. Brielle shook it, noting that despite everything he'd been through, his grip was firm and confident. "Brielle Johnson," she said. "Brielle." He repeated her name like he was testing how it sounded. "I owe you my life. If you hadn't jumped in..." "Anyone would have done the same," Brielle said, though she knew that wasn't true. She'd been the only one there. "No," Gabriel said firmly. Not anyone. Most people would have stayed on that car roof and waited for help. You risked your life for a complete stranger. That's not something anyone does. That's something special. Brielle felt her cheeks warm. She wasn't used to this kind of attention. I'm just glad you're okay. Gabriel sat down on the edge of her cot, uninvited but not unwelcome. The paramedics say I'm fine. Mild hypothermia, some water in my lungs, but nothing serious. Thanks to you. He paused. Can I ask you something? Why did you do it? Jump in, I mean. You could have died. Brielle thought about it. I didn't really think about it. I just saw you going under and I knew nobody else was going to help. So I had to. You had to, Gabriel repeated softly. He was quiet for a moment, studying her face like he was trying to memorize it. I want to repay you. Whatever you need, whatever you want, just name it. I don't need anything, Brielle said automatically. Everyone needs something, Gabriel said. Please, let me help you. It's the least I can do. Brielle was about to refuse again when she really looked at him. His eyes were pleading, desperate even. This wasn't just about money or obligation. He needed this. He needed to feel like he could give something back, like he wasn't just helpless in the water waiting to die. Okay, she said quietly. My car is gone. And my phone. I'll need help getting those replaced. Done, Gabriel said immediately. Give me your address and I'll have everything delivered tomorrow. New phone, new car, whatever you need. That's too much, Brielle protested. It's not nearly enough, Gabriel said. You gave me my life back. A phone and a car are nothing compared to that. He pulled out a business card from his wallet, which had somehow survived the flood in a waterproof case. He handed it to her. This has my personal number on it. Call me tomorrow and we'll arrange everything. Brielle looked at the card. It was simple but elegant, with raised lettering that read, Gabriel Foster, Chief Executive Officer, Foster Industries. Her eyes widened. You're the Gabriel Foster? The tech guy. Gabriel smiled, a little embarrassed. That's me. Brielle had heard of him. Everyone had. Foster Industries was one of the biggest tech companies in the country. Gabriel Foster was always in the news for his innovations and his business deals. He was worth billions. And she just pulled him out of a flood like he was any other person. Oh, was all she could say. Does that change anything? Gabriel asked, and there was something vulnerable in his voice. Brielle looked at him, really looked at him, and saw past the expensive clothes and the famous name. She saw the man who'd almost drowned, who'd held on to her in the water, who'd looked at her with gratitude when he woke up on that fire escape. Being rich didn't make him less human or less grateful. No, she said. It doesn't change anything. Gabriel's smile widened, reaching his eyes this time. Good. Because I meant what I said. I'm going to take care of the car and the phone. And if there's anything else you need, anything at all, you call me. Please don't hesitate. It would mean a lot to me. Brielle nodded, tucking the business card into her pocket. Thank you. No thank you, Gabriel said. He stood up, looking like he wanted to say more but didn't know how. Finally he just added, get some rest. You've earned it. I'll be in touch tomorrow. He walked back to where the paramedics were waiting, leaving Brielle alone with her thoughts. She looked down at the tea in her hands, watching the steam rise. Today had been the strangest day of her life. She'd almost died, saved a billionaire, and now that billionaire wanted to repay her. Part of her wanted to refuse everything. She wasn't the kind of person who took handouts. She worked hard for what she had and she was proud of that. But another part of her, the practical part, knew she really did need help. Her car was gone. Her phone was gone. She couldn't afford to replace them on her own, not with her diner wages. And Gabriel had been so sincere when he asked to help. He wasn't doing this to show off or to make her feel small. He was doing it because she'd saved his life and he wanted to give something back. That was kindness, pure and simple. And if there was one thing Brielle believed in, it was accepting kindness when it was offered with a good heart. She would call him tomorrow. She would let him help her. And maybe, just maybe, something good would come from this terrible flood after all. A volunteer brought her some food and Brielle ate mechanically, her mind still processing everything. Across the shelter, Gabriel was being checked over one more time by the paramedics. He caught her looking and gave her a small wave. She waved back. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know how Gabriel Foster was going to change her life. All she knew was that when she saw him drowning, she jumped in without thinking twice. And now, somehow, that simple act of courage had connected her to a man who wanted nothing more than to help her in return. Brielle finished her tea and lay down on the cot, pulling the blanket up to her chin. Her body ached everywhere and exhaustion pulled at her like a heavy weight. But before she closed her eyes, she touched the business card in her pocket one more time, feeling the raised letters under her fingertips. Gabriel Foster. Chief Executive Officer. The man she'd saved. The man who'd looked at her like she was something special. Tomorrow everything would change. But tonight she would rest knowing she'd done the right thing. Knowing she'd saved a life. And somehow that knowledge made all the pain and fear worth it. Brielle's apartment was exactly as she'd left it, which felt like a small victory after the flood. The building had survived with minimal damage since it was on higher ground. Water had gotten into the basement and the first floor, but the upper floors were dry and safe. Brielle stood in her small one-bedroom apartment, looking at her worn couch and the small kitchen table she'd bought secondhand, and felt a wave of gratitude. This wasn't much, but it was hers and it was still here. It had been 2 days since the flood. The city was slowly recovering, pumping water out of streets and subways, assessing damage, helping displaced families. Brielle had stayed at the shelter for one night, then made her way home once public transportation started running again. She'd borrowed a phone from a neighbor to call Gabriel's number, leaving a message with her address. She hadn't expected him to show up in person. But there he was, standing in her doorway in a perfectly tailored gray suit with a green tie, looking completely out of place in her shabby apartment building. Behind him stood a woman in professional attire holding a briefcase. "Brielle," Gabriel said, smiling warmly. "May we come in?" "Of course," Brielle said, stepping aside. She was suddenly very aware of her small apartment, the peeling paint on the walls, the old carpet that had seen better days. But if Gabriel noticed any of it, he didn't show it. He looked around with genuine interest, not judgment. "This is Rachel Thompson, my attorney," Gabriel said, gesturing to the woman with him. "I hope you don't mind that I brought her along. There are some papers to sign for the car and phone." "No problem," Brielle said, though her stomach tightened with nervousness. Attorneys made everything feel more serious. They sat at her kitchen table and Rachel opened her briefcase, pulling out several documents. "Mr. Foster has arranged for a new vehicle to be delivered to you," she explained. "It's a brand new sedan, fully insured for the year. We just need your signature here and here." Brielle read through the documents carefully. Everything seemed straightforward. She signed where indicated. "And here's the new phone," Rachel said, pulling out a box containing the latest smartphone. "It's already activated with a new number. Your old number can be transferred once the phone company processes the request." "This is too much," Brielle said, looking at Gabriel. "This phone costs more than I make in 3 months." "It's yours," Gabriel said simply. "Please accept it. You need a phone and this one will last you for years." Brielle wanted to argue, but she remembered what she'd decided in the shelter. She would accept help when it was offered with a good heart. And Gabriel's heart was clearly in the right place. "Thank you," she said, taking the phone. Gabriel smiled, looking relieved. "There's one more thing I wanted to discuss with you." He glanced at Rachel, who pulled out another document. "I'd like to offer you a job at Foster Industries." Brielle blinked. "A job?" "Yes," Gabriel said, leaning forward. "I need a new executive assistant. Someone organized, reliable, and quick-thinking. After what you did during the flood, I know you're all of those things. The position comes with a competitive salary, full benefits, and room for advancement." Rachel slid the document across the table. Brielle picked it up and her eyes went wide when she saw the salary figure. It was more than 3 times what she made at the diner. With this kind of money, she could actually save for the future. She could pay off her student loans. She could maybe even think about going back to school. "I don't have experience in tech," Brielle said hesitantly. "I'm not sure I'm qualified." "You're more than qualified," Gabriel said firmly. "Being my assistant isn't about knowing technology. It's about being dependable, handling pressure, and managing complex schedules. You saved my life during a crisis. I think you can handle my calendar." Brielle looked down at the document again. This was an incredible opportunity. Life-changing. But a small voice in her head whispered that maybe she was only getting this because she'd saved him. Maybe this was charity dressed up as a job offer. As if reading her mind, Gabriel said, "I know what you're thinking. You're wondering if this is real or if I'm just offering it out of obligation. I promise you this is a real job. I need someone I can trust and I trust you. You proved that in the flood. But if you take this position, you'll work for it. I'm not an easy boss. I expect a lot from my team." Brielle appreciated his honesty. She looked at him, searching his face for any sign of insincerity, but found none. He was serious about this. He really wanted her to work for him. And she needed this job. She needed the money, the opportunity, the chance to build a better life. Why should she refuse something good just because of how it came to her? Sometimes you had to recognize when help was real and accept it with grace. Okay, Brielle said, meeting his eyes. I accept. Thank you for this opportunity. I won't let you down. Gabriel's face lit up. That's wonderful. Rachel will go over all the details with you. You'll start on Monday, which gives you a few days to handle any personal business. We'll provide a clothing allowance for professional attire, and there's a company gym and cafeteria you can use. They spent the next hour going over paperwork and logistics. Rachel explained the benefits package, the work hours, the company policies. Brielle's head spun with all the information, but she took notes on her new phone, determined to remember everything. Finally, Rachel packed up her briefcase and excused herself, saying she'd see Brielle on Monday for orientation. Gabriel stood to leave as well, but paused at the door. Thank you for accepting, he said quietly. I know this is a big change, but I have a feeling this is going to be good for both of us. I hope so, Brielle said. I know so, Gabriel replied. He reached out and shook her hand, his grip warm and reassuring. See you Monday, Brielle. After he left, Brielle stood in her apartment, looking at the phone in her hand and the employment contract on her table. In less than a week, her entire life had changed. She'd gone from serving tables at a diner to working as an executive assistant at one of the biggest tech companies in the world. It didn't feel real yet, but it would. On Monday, when she walked into Foster Industries, it would all become very real. Brielle allowed herself a moment of pure joy. She'd been struggling for so long, working 2 jobs just to make rent, wondering if things would ever get better. And now, because she'd done the right thing, because she'd helped someone who needed it, her life was transforming. She called her mother, who worked as a nurse 2 states away. Mom, you're not going to believe what happened. She told her everything. The flood, the rescue, the job offer. Her mother listened, occasionally gasping or murmuring in amazement. Baby, I'm so proud of you, her mother said when Brielle finished. You've always had the biggest heart. And now someone's finally giving back to you. This is your time. Take it and run with it. I'm scared, Brielle admitted. What if I mess up? What if I'm not good enough? You are good enough, her mother said firmly. You've always been good enough. Don't let fear stop you from accepting this gift. You saved that man's life, Brielle. He wants to help you because he knows you're special. Believe him. Believe in yourself. After they hung up, Brielle sat on her couch, thinking about her mother's words. She did need to believe in herself. She'd spent so long just surviving, just getting by, that she'd forgotten how to dream about something better. But now, something better was right here in front of her. She thought about Gabriel, about the way he'd looked at her when he offered the job. There had been respect in his eyes, genuine respect. He saw her as capable, as someone worth investing in. And she needed to see herself that way too. Monday couldn't come fast enough. Brielle spent the weekend preparing. She used the clothing allowance Rachel had given her to buy professional outfits, simple but elegant dresses and blazers in bright colors that made her feel confident. She practiced introducing herself, researched Foster Industries, and read everything she could about being an executive assistant. By the time Monday morning arrived, she was nervous but ready. She stood in front of her mirror, looking at herself in a beautiful blue dress and matching blazer. Her hair was styled in neat curls and she'd put on minimal makeup. She looked professional. She looked capable. She looked like someone who belonged at a company like Foster Industries. You can do this, she told her reflection. You saved a man's life. You can handle this job. She grabbed her new phone, her bag, and headed out the door, ready to start her new life. The flood had taken her car and disrupted her world, but it had also brought her Gabriel Foster and this incredible opportunity. Sometimes, she thought, the worst moments led to the best changes. You just had to be brave enough to jump in. And Brielle Johnson had always been brave. The Foster Industries building was a soaring tower of glass and steel that reflected the morning sky like a mirror. Brielle stood on the sidewalk, craning her neck to see the top. 43 floors of innovation and ambition, and somewhere in there was her new desk. The thought made her stomach flip with nerves and excitement in equal measure. She smoothed down her blue dress, took a deep breath, and walked through the revolving doors into the lobby. The space was enormous, with polished marble floors and modern art installations that probably cost more than her entire apartment building. People in business attire moved purposefully through the space, everyone looking like they knew exactly where they belonged. Brielle approached the reception desk, where a friendly woman with red hair looked up with a smile. Good morning. How can I help you? I'm Brielle Johnson. It's my first day as Mr. Foster's executive assistant. The receptionist's eyes widened slightly. Oh yes. We've been expecting you. Let me call up and let them know you're here. She picked up the phone and spoke quietly, then hung up. Rachel Thompson will be down in just a moment to take you up. Thank you, Brielle said. She waited by the reception desk, watching the flow of people. Everyone moved with such confidence, such purpose. She wondered if she'd ever feel that comfortable here, or if she'd always be the girl from the diner who got lucky. Brielle. She turned to see Rachel approaching, dressed in a sharp maroon suit that spoke of both power and style. Good morning. Ready for your first day? As ready as I'll ever be, Brielle said honestly. Rachel smiled. You'll do fine. Come on, I'll take you up. They rode the elevator to the 40th floor, and Rachel used the ride to explain the basics. Mr. Foster's office suite takes up this entire floor. Your desk will be right outside his office, so you'll be the first line of contact for anyone who wants to meet with him. Your main responsibilities will be managing his calendar, screening his calls, organizing his meetings, and handling correspondence. The elevator doors opened, and Brielle stepped into a space that was somehow both professional and welcoming. Large windows offered a stunning view of the city. The furniture was modern but comfortable. Plants added touches of green throughout the space. And right in the center was a beautiful desk with a brand new computer and phone. This is you, Rachel said, gesturing to the desk. Mr. Foster's office is through those doors. He's in a meeting right now but should be back within the hour. Let me show you how everything works. They spent the next 45 minutes going over systems and procedures. Rachel explained the calendar software, the phone system, the filing protocols. She introduced Brielle to other people on the floor, including Justin Park, the chief technology officer, and Monica Lewis, the head of public relations. Everyone was welcoming, though Brielle could sense their curiosity. They all knew she was the woman who'd saved Gabriel's life. And that's the basics, Rachel said finally. You'll learn more as you go. Don't be afraid to ask questions. We all started somewhere. Thank you, Brielle said. For everything. You've been really kind. Gabriel's a good man, Rachel said. He takes care of people who take care of him. You'll see. She glanced at her watch. I have to run to another meeting, but you're in good hands. Just take it one task at a time. After Rachel left, Brielle sat at her new desk, taking in her surroundings. The chair was incredibly comfortable. The computer monitor was huge and crystal clear. Everything was top of the line, efficient, designed to make work easier. She thought about the cramped break room at the diner and had to suppress a laugh. This was different. This was so incredibly different. She logged into the computer using the credentials Rachel had given her and started familiarizing herself with Gabriel's calendar. His schedule was packed, back-to-back meetings with very little downtime. She saw appointments with investors, tech conferences, charity events, business dinners. The man never stopped. Overwhelming, isn't it? Brielle looked up to see Gabriel standing by her desk, smiling at her. He wore a dark suit with a blue shirt that matched his eyes, and he looked every inch the powerful CEO. But his smile was warm and genuine, the same smile he'd given her in the shelter. A little, she admitted. But I'll figure it out. I know you will, Gabriel said. How was your first morning? Has Rachel been taking care of you? She's been great. Everyone has been really welcoming. Good. Gabriel glanced at his watch. I have about 20 minutes before my next meeting. Want to grab coffee and I'll give you the unofficial tour? Sure, Brielle said, standing up. They walked through the office suite, Gabriel pointing out different departments and explaining what each team did. He knew everyone by name, asked about their families, made jokes that had people laughing. Brielle realized quickly that despite his wealth and power, Gabriel was well liked by his employees. He wasn't distant or cold. He was present and engaged. They ended up in a small break room with a fancy coffee machine that looked like it required a manual to operate. Gabriel made them both coffee with practiced ease, handing Brielle a perfectly frothed latte. This machine has saved my life more times than I can count, he said, taking a sip of his own coffee. Late nights, early mornings, stressful negotiations. Coffee makes everything better. I worked as a barista for a while, Brielle said. This machine is nicer than anything we had there. Gabriel leaned against the counter, studying her. Can I ask you something? How are you really doing? After the flood, I mean. That was traumatic. Brielle considered the question. She'd been so focused on the practical stuff, the job and the apartment and the new phone, that she hadn't really stopped to process what had happened. She'd almost died. She'd saved someone's life. Those weren't small things. I'm okay, she said finally. Some nights I dream about the water. But mostly I'm just grateful we both made it out. Me too, Gabriel said quietly. I think about it every day. About what could have happened if you hadn't been there. He was quiet for a moment, then seemed to shake off the heavy mood. But you were there. And now you're here. And I'm really glad about that. Brielle felt her cheeks warm. There was something in the way he looked at her, something that made her heart beat a little faster. But she pushed the feeling aside. He was her boss. This was a professional relationship. She couldn't start reading into things that weren't there. I'm glad to be here, she said. Thank you again for the opportunity. Stop thanking me, Gabriel said with a smile. You're going to earn every penny of that salary. I'm a demanding boss, remember? I remember, Brielle said. I'm ready for the challenge. They finished their coffee and Gabriel walked her back to her desk. His next meeting was about to start, so he excused himself, disappearing into his office with a final smile in her direction. Brielle sat back at her desk and looked at her computer screen. Her first task was to confirm the details for a charity gala happening next month. She pulled up the event file and started making calls, introducing herself to vendors and venue managers, checking on arrangements. Everyone she spoke with was professional and helpful, and by lunchtime she'd confirmed everything and sent Gabriel a detailed report. She felt a small surge of pride. She could do this. She was doing this. At noon, Monica Lewis stopped by her desk. Want to grab lunch? There's a great salad place downstairs and I'd love to get to know you better. Sure, Brielle said, grateful for the company. They took the elevator down to the building's food court, which was nothing like any cafeteria Brielle had ever seen. It was more like an upscale food hall with multiple vendors offering everything from sushi to salads to gourmet sandwiches. This is incredible, Brielle said. One of the perks, Monica said. Gabriel believes that if you take care of your employees, they'll take care of the company. So we get good food, a nice gym, reasonable hours, and actual work-life balance. It's why people love working here. They got salads and found a table by the windows. Monica was in her late 30s, confident and articulate, with dark skin and beautiful natural hair styled in an elaborate updo. She wore a striking green dress that somehow managed to be both professional and fashionable. So, Monica said, spearing a piece of lettuce with her fork, you're the woman who saved Gabriel's life. That's me, Brielle said. What you did was incredible, Monica said seriously. Jumping into floodwaters like that. Most people would have frozen. I didn't really think about it, Brielle said. I just reacted. That says a lot about who you are, Monica said. Gabriel's a good judge of character. If he hired you, it's because he sees something special. Don't sell yourself short. Brielle appreciated the encouragement. I'm just trying to do a good job. You will, Monica said confidently. And if you ever need anything, advice, help navigating office politics, someone to vent to, my door is always open. We women have to stick together in the corporate world. They spent the rest of lunch talking about less serious things. Monica told funny stories about office mishaps and industry conferences. Brielle found herself relaxing, laughing, feeling like maybe she could fit in here after all. When they got back upstairs, Gabriel was in the hallway talking with Justin Park. He looked up when Brielle approached and his face brightened. How was lunch? He asked. Great, Brielle said. Monica showed me the food court. Did you try the sushi place? It's my favorite. Next time, Brielle promised. Gabriel nodded, then seemed to remember Justin was standing there. Justin and I are heading to a meeting. Can you make sure the conference room on 38 is set up with the presentation equipment? On it, Brielle said. She watched them walk toward the elevators, then got to work on Gabriel's request. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of tasks. Phone calls, emails, calendar updates, meeting preparations. It was busy and sometimes stressful, but Brielle found that she actually enjoyed it. She liked feeling useful, liked being at the center of things, liked knowing that her work mattered. At 6 o'clock, Gabriel emerged from his office, loosening his tie. You're still here. Just finishing up a few things, Brielle said. Go home, Gabriel said gently. Your first day is over. You did great, by the way. Better than great. Thank you, Brielle said, saving her work and shutting down her computer. They rode the elevator down together, making small talk about the day. In the lobby, Gabriel paused. Can I give you a ride home? My driver's outside. Brielle hesitated. It felt like crossing a line, accepting a ride from her boss. But it was also practical. Okay. Thank you. Gabriel's driver was waiting outside in a sleek black car. They climbed into the back seat and Brielle gave the driver her address. The car pulled into traffic, smooth and quiet. So, Gabriel said, Honest assessment. How was your first day? Busy, Brielle said. Challenging. But good. Really good. I'm glad, Gabriel said. He looked out the window at the passing city lights. I meant what I said earlier. I think about the flood every day. About how quickly things can change. One moment I was walking to my car, the next I was drowning. Life can turn on a dime. I know what you mean, Brielle said quietly. Gabriel looked at her. I feel like I've been given a second chance. And I don't want to waste it. I want to do better, be better. And I think having you around is going to help with that. How so? Brielle asked. You remind me of what's important, Gabriel said simply. Kindness, courage, doing the right thing even when it's hard. I get so caught up in business and numbers and deals that I forget sometimes. But you just jumped in that water without thinking twice. That's who I want to be. Brielle didn't know what to say. She felt the weight of his words, the sincerity behind them. This wasn't just about a job or repaying a debt. Gabriel genuinely valued her, respected her, wanted her in his life. The car pulled up to her apartment building. Gabriel walked her to the door, ignoring her protest that he didn't have to. I'll see you tomorrow, he said. See you tomorrow, Brielle echoed. She watched his car drive away, then headed upstairs to her apartment. Inside, she kicked off her shoes and collapsed on the couch, exhausted but happy. Her first day at Foster Industries had been everything she'd hoped for and more. The work was interesting. The people were kind. And Gabriel was turning out to be someone pretty special. She thought about the way he'd looked at her in the car, the things he'd said. There was something there, something more than just a professional relationship. But she couldn't think about that now. She was his assistant. She had a job to do. Getting involved with her boss would be complicated and probably a bad idea. But as she got ready for bed, she couldn't stop thinking about his smile, his kind eyes, the way he'd said her name. Brielle Johnson had jumped into floodwaters to save a stranger, and somehow, that stranger was becoming important to her in ways she hadn't expected. Tomorrow was another day. Another chance to prove herself, to learn, to grow. And maybe, just maybe, another chance to figure out what was happening between her and Gabriel Foster. She fell asleep with a smile on her face, dreaming not of floods this time, but of blue-gray eyes and a voice that said her name like it meant something special. 3 weeks into her new job, Brielle was starting to feel like she actually belonged at Foster Industries. She'd learned the rhythm of Gabriel's schedule, anticipating his needs before he asked. She knew he liked his coffee black in the morning but with cream in the afternoon. She knew he was cranky before lunch if he'd skipped breakfast. She knew when a meeting was going badly by the way he rubbed the back of his neck. All the small details that made her good at her job. But more than that, she and Gabriel had developed an easy rapport. They talked during coffee breaks, laughing about strange requests from clients or mishaps during presentations. He asked about her mother, her childhood, her dreams. She asked about his family, how he'd built his company, what drove him. They were becoming friends, real friends, in addition to being boss and assistant. Today was Saturday, which Brielle usually had off. But Gabriel had called her the night before, asking if she'd be willing to accompany him to a charity event. His regular +1, his sister, was out of town and he didn't want to go alone. Brielle had agreed, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach at the thought of spending the day with him outside of work. He picked her up at 2 in the afternoon, and she was grateful she'd bought a nice red dress with part of her first paycheck. Gabriel wore a charcoal suit that fit him perfectly, and he smiled when he saw her. You look beautiful, he said. Thank you, Brielle said, feeling her cheeks warm. You clean up pretty nice yourself. They drove to a community center in a neighborhood that had been hit hard by the flood. The parking lot was full of cars and volunteers were everywhere, carrying supplies and organizing activities. A large banner read, Flood Relief Fundraiser. Together we rebuild. This is one of my favorite charities, Gabriel explained as they walked toward the entrance. They help families who lost everything in the flood. I've been donating to them for years, but after what happened to us, it feels more personal. Inside, the event was in full swing. There was a silent auction, a bake sale, activities for kids, and a stage where local musicians performed. People mingled and laughed, united by a common cause. Brielle felt a warmth in her chest. This was good. This was people helping people. Gabriel was immediately surrounded by other donors and organizers, everyone wanting to thank him or pitch new ideas. He handled it all with grace, introducing Brielle to everyone and making sure she felt included. She noticed that he didn't just write checks. He listened to people's stories, asked thoughtful questions, made real connections. They spent an hour walking around the event, bidding on auction items and sampling the baked goods. Gabriel won a painting made by a local artist who'd lost her home in the flood. He immediately announced he'd be displaying it in his office. "This is amazing," Brielle told him. "All these people coming together to help." "It's what we're supposed to do," Gabriel said. "Help each other. Nobody makes it alone." He looked at her meaningfully. "You taught me that. When you jumped in that water, you showed me what real courage looks like. What real humanity looks like." Before Brielle could respond, a woman approached them. She was in her 40s with kind eyes and graying hair. "Mr. Foster? I wanted to thank you personally. Your donation helped us rebuild our home. We moved back in last week." Gabriel's face lit up. "That's wonderful. I'm so glad." "My daughter wants to meet you," the woman said. "She keeps talking about how you're a hero for helping people." "I'm not a hero," Gabriel said quickly, then he gestured to Brielle. "But she is. This is Brielle Johnson. She saved my life during the flood." The woman's eyes widened. "Oh my goodness. Thank you. If you hadn't saved him, he wouldn't have been able to help all of us." Brielle didn't know what to say. She'd never thought of it that way. By saving Gabriel, she'd indirectly helped all the people he'd been able to help afterward. The thought was overwhelming and humbling. "I just did what anyone would do," Brielle said. "No," the woman said firmly. "Not anyone. You did something special. Thank you." After the woman walked away, Gabriel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Do you see now? What you did mattered. Not just to me but to everyone I've been able to help since then. Your courage had a ripple effect." Brielle felt tears prick her eyes. She'd been so focused on just getting through each day that she hadn't stopped to think about the bigger picture. But Gabriel was right. Actions had consequences, and her decision to jump into that water had changed more lives than just his. "Come on," Gabriel said softly. "Let me introduce you to the family whose home we helped rebuild." They spent the next hour meeting people and hearing stories. Each family had lost something in the flood, but they were all rebuilding, finding hope in the midst of loss. And many of them mentioned Gabriel's foundation, the donations he'd made, the direct help he'd provided. Brielle realized something important. Gabriel didn't just throw money at problems. He got involved. He cared. He used his wealth to make real, tangible differences in people's lives. That wasn't something all rich people did. It was special. As the event wound down, they walked back to the car. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and purple. Gabriel loosened his tie, looking more relaxed than Brielle had ever seen him. "Thank you for coming today," he said. "It meant a lot to have you there." "Thank you for inviting me," Brielle said. "It was really eye-opening. Seeing how much you do for people." "I try," Gabriel said. "But I could always do more." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Can I tell you something? About my family?" "Of course," Brielle said. They sat in the car, but Gabriel didn't start it yet. He just stared out the windshield, his hands resting on the steering wheel. "I grew up with money," he said. "My father built a successful business and we never wanted for anything. But my parents weren't warm people. They cared more about appearances and success than they did about actually connecting with people. I watched them go through life with everything they needed but nothing that really mattered. No close friends. No joy. Just endless ambition." Brielle listened, not interrupting. "When I started my own company, I promised myself I'd be different," Gabriel continued. "I'd make money, yes, but I'd also make a difference. I'd build real relationships. I'd care about the people around me, not just the bottom line. And for a while I think I did okay. But then the company grew so fast and I got caught up in it. I started becoming like my parents. All work, no life." He turned to look at her. "And then the flood happened. And you saved me. And it was like a wake-up call. I almost died, Brielle. And what would I have left behind? A successful company, sure. But what else? Who would have really mourned me beyond my sister?" "I think a lot of people would have mourned you," Brielle said softly. "You matter to people." "Maybe," Gabriel said. "But I want to matter more. I want to build something real. Not just a business empire, but a life worth living." He reached over and took her hand, and the touch sent electricity through her. "You've helped me see that. Just by being you. By being kind and brave and real." Brielle looked down at their joined hands. This was crossing a line, she knew it. But she didn't pull away. She didn't want to. "I'm not special," she said. "You are to me," Gabriel said simply. They sat like that for a long moment, the world outside the car fading away. Then Gabriel gently released her hand and started the car. "Let me take you to dinner," he said. "There's a place I love, very casual, amazing food. My treat." You're always treating me, Brielle said with a smile. Maybe next time I should treat you. Deal? Gabriel said, grinning. They went to a small Italian restaurant tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. It was nothing fancy, just red checkered tablecloths and the smell of garlic bread. But the food was incredible and the atmosphere was warm and welcoming. Over pasta and wine they talked about everything and nothing. Gabriel told stories about building his company from the ground up, the mistakes he'd made, the lessons he'd learned. Brielle told him about growing up with a single mother who worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat, about her decision to move to the city to find better opportunities. Your mother sounds amazing, Gabriel said. She is, Brielle agreed. She taught me that kindness costs nothing but means everything. And that you should always help people when you can, because we're all in this together. Wise woman, Gabriel said. I'd like to meet her someday. The words hung in the air between them, weighted with implication. Meeting parents was serious. It meant something. She'd like you, Brielle said carefully. She's been asking about you since I told her about the job. What did you tell her? Gabriel asked. That you're a good man, Brielle said. That you're generous and kind. That you make me want to be better. Gabriel's eyes softened. You make me want to be better too. They finished dinner and he drove her home. At her apartment door he walked her up again just like after her first day of work. But this time felt different. The air between them was charged with something neither of them had named yet. Thank you for today, Brielle said. For letting me be part of it. Thank you for always saying yes, Gabriel said. To the job, to the charity event, to dinner. You could have said no to any of it but you didn't. You keep giving me chances to show you who I am. I like who you are, Brielle said softly. Gabriel stepped closer. I like who I am when I'm with you. For a moment Brielle thought he might kiss her. Part of her wanted him to. But he just smiled and stepped back. Good night, Brielle. Good night, Gabriel. She went inside and leaned against the closed door, her heart racing. Something was happening between them. Something real and undeniable. And for the first time in her life, Brielle was willing to see where it led. She thought about the families they'd met at the charity event, about Gabriel's confession in the car, about the way he'd held her hand and looked at her like she was something precious. This man, this billionaire CEO who could have anyone, seemed to really see her. Not as the woman who saved him, but as Brielle. Just Brielle. And she was starting to see him too. Not as her boss or a wealthy man but as Gabriel. A man who cared deeply, who wanted to make a difference, who was lonely despite everything he had. A man who made her laugh and challenged her to grow. A man who looked at her like she was the best part of his day. She got ready for bed but sleep was a long time coming. Her mind kept replaying the day, his words, the feel of his hand in hers. She knew she was falling for him. It was probably a bad idea. There were so many reasons it could go wrong. But when had love ever made sense? When had the heart ever listened to the practical warnings of the mind? Brielle fell asleep with a smile on her face, thinking about tomorrow and the day after and all the days to come. For the first time in years she wasn't just surviving. She was living. And it felt wonderful. The next month passed in a blur of work and stolen moments. Brielle and Gabriel fell into an easy pattern. They worked together during the day, maintaining professionalism in front of others. But after hours they'd grab dinner or coffee, talking for hours about everything under the sun. She learned that he loved old movies and classical music. He learned that she'd always dreamed of going back to school to study business management. So do it, Gabriel said one evening over Thai food. Apply to programs. I'll give you flexible hours to attend classes. I can't afford it, Brielle said. Even with my salary, tuition is expensive. Foster Industries has a tuition reimbursement program, Gabriel said. It covers up to full tuition for employees pursuing degrees related to their work. Check with HR. I set up that program specifically to help people better themselves. Brielle felt a surge of hope. She could actually go back to school. Finish her degree. Build a real career. Thank you, she said. For everything you've done for me. Stop thanking me, Gabriel said, but he was smiling. You've done just as much for me. More probably. Their relationship was shifting, becoming something deeper than friendship but not quite romance. They existed in a space between, both aware of the attraction but neither willing to make the first move. Gabriel was her boss after all. And Brielle was still finding her footing in her new life. But the tension was undeniable. The way Gabriel looked at her sometimes, like she was the only person in the room. The way her heart raced when he walked into the office. The way they found excuses to be near each other, to touch briefly, to extend conversations longer than necessary. Monica noticed. You know everyone in the office is talking about you too, right? She said one day during lunch. There's nothing to talk about, Brielle protested. We're just friends. Right? Monica said, clearly not believing her. Look, I'm not judging. Gabriel deserves to be happy and you're good for him. Everyone can see that. He's been different since you started. More relaxed. More present. Just be careful, okay? Office romances can get complicated. There's no romance, Brielle insisted, but even she wasn't sure she believed it anymore. The truth was she was falling for Gabriel. Art. And she was pretty sure he felt the same way. But neither of them seemed ready to cross that line yet. There was too much at stake. Her job. Their friendship. The respect of their colleagues. One wrong move could ruin everything. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. It was a Tuesday evening and most of the office had cleared out. Brielle was finishing up some paperwork when Gabriel emerged from his office, looking frustrated. Everything okay? She asked. No, Gabriel said, running a hand through his hair. I just got off the phone with my father. He wants me to come to dinner tomorrow night to meet some business associates. He does this every few months, parades me around like a show horse, expects me to make small talk and impress people I don't care about. Sounds rough, Brielle said sympathetically. It is, Gabriel said. And the worst part is I'm expected to bring a date. Someone appropriate and professional who won't embarrass him. As if I'm 16 and not a grown man running my own company. Brielle didn't know what to say. This was clearly about more than just a dinner. This was about Gabriel's relationship with his father, about expectations and disappointments and old wounds. What are you going to do? She asked. Gabriel looked at her and something shifted in his expression. Come with me. What? Come to dinner with me tomorrow? Gabriel said. Please. I can't face my father alone. And you make everything better. You make me feel like I can handle anything. Brielle hesitated. This was different from the charity event. That had been public and safe. A family dinner with Gabriel's father was intimate and personal. It was crossing a line. But she looked at Gabriel's face, at the vulnerability there, and she couldn't say no. He needed her. And she was realizing that she needed him too. Okay, she said. I'll come. Gabriel's relief was visible. Thank you. I know it's a lot to ask. But it would mean the world to me. The next evening, Gabriel picked her up in his car. Brielle wore an elegant green dress that Monica had insisted she buy, saying every woman needed a dress that made her feel powerful. She'd been right. Brielle felt confident and beautiful. Gabriel's eyes widened when he saw her. Wow. You look stunning. Thank you, Brielle said. You look pretty good yourself. He wore a dark suit with a silver tie, and he looked every inch the successful CEO. But Brielle could see the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. He was nervous. They drove to an upscale neighborhood with large houses behind gates. Gabriel's childhood home was a mansion, all stone and glass with manicured lawns. It was impressive but somehow cold, lacking the warmth that made a house a home. Ready? Gabriel asked, parking in the circular driveway. Ready? Brielle said, reaching over to squeeze his hand. Gabriel's father answered the door himself. He was in his 60s, tall and stern-looking, with gray hair and sharp eyes. He looked Gabriel up and down, then turned his attention to Brielle. So you brought someone? He said, his tone neutral. This is unexpected. Father, this is Brielle Johnson, Gabriel said, his voice tight. Brielle, my father, Richard Foster. Nice to meet you, Mr. Foster, Brielle said, offering her hand. Richard shook it briefly. You're the woman from the flood. Gabriel told me about you. Yes, sir, Brielle said. Richard said, then turned and walked into the house, clearly expecting them to follow. The interior was just as cold as the exterior. Everything was expensive and perfectly arranged, but it felt like a museum, not a home. They were led to a formal dining room where several other people were already seated. Business associates, Brielle assumed, all dressed immaculately and looking bored. Dinner was a strained affair. Richard dominated the conversation, talking about business deals and market trends. Gabriel participated minimally, his jaw tight. Brielle could feel the tension between father and son, years of disappointment and unmet expectations. At one point, Richard turned to Brielle. So, Ms. Johnson, Gabriel says you work for him. As his assistant. That's right, Brielle said. And before that, what did you do? Brielle knew what he was really asking. He wanted to know if she was worthy of his son. I worked in food service. I was saving money to finish my business degree. I see, Richard said, his tone implying he saw exactly what he'd expected. Someone beneath his son's station. Gabriel's hand found Brielle's under the table, squeezing gently. She squeezed back, silently telling him she was okay. The dinner finally ended and they made their escape. Once they were back in the car, Gabriel let out a long breath. "I'm so sorry," he said. "My father was worse than usual. He's such a snob." "It's okay," Brielle said. "I've dealt with worse." "You shouldn't have to deal with that," Gabriel said fiercely. "You're amazing and my father should see that. But he's too busy judging people by their bank accounts to see who they really are." "He's your father," Brielle said gently. "Even if he's difficult, he's still your father." "Sometimes I wish he wasn't," Gabriel muttered. Then he shook his head. "I'm sorry. You shouldn't have to deal with my family drama." "I don't mind," Brielle said. "Everyone has family stuff. You've been there for me. I can be here for you." Gabriel pulled the car over suddenly, parking on a quiet side street. He turned to face her, his eyes intense in the dim light. "Brielle," he said. "I need to tell you something." Her heart started racing. "Okay." "I've been trying to keep things professional between us," Gabriel said. "Because you work for me and I don't want to take advantage or make you uncomfortable. But I can't pretend anymore. I care about you. A lot. More than I should. More than I've cared about anyone in a long time." Brielle's breath caught. This was it. The moment they'd been dancing around for weeks. "I care about you too," she said softly. "You do?" Gabriel asked, hope and vulnerability mixing in his voice. "Yes," Brielle said. "I've been trying not to because this could get complicated. But I can't help it. You're kind and funny and you make me feel like I can do anything. You see me, really see me, and that means everything." Gabriel reached out and cupped her face gently. "Can I kiss you?" "Yes," Brielle whispered. He leaned in, and their lips met in a kiss that was gentle and sweet and full of promise. Brielle felt fireworks go off in her chest. This was right. This was what she'd been waiting for without even knowing it. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling. "I've wanted to do that for weeks," Gabriel admitted. "Me too," Brielle said. They sat in the car, holding hands, both grinning like teenagers. Everything had changed in an instant, but somehow it also felt like nothing had changed at all. They were still Gabriel and Brielle. They were just finally admitting what had been there all along. "What do we do now?" Brielle asked. "We figure it out," Gabriel said. "Together. If you want to." "I want to," Brielle said. He kissed her again, longer this time, deeper, and Brielle felt herself melting into him. This was real. This was happening. And for once in her life, she wasn't going to second-guess something good. When Gabriel finally drove her home, he walked her to her door like always. But this time when he said goodnight, he kissed her again, soft and lingering. "I'll see you tomorrow," he said. "See you tomorrow," Brielle echoed, her lips still tingling. Inside her apartment, she touched her fingers to her lips, replaying the kisses in her mind. She was dating her boss. Dating a billionaire. Dating Gabriel Foster. It sounded crazy when she put it like that. But it didn't feel crazy. It felt right. She called her mother, needing to share the news with someone. "He kissed you?" her mother said, excitement in her voice. "Oh baby, that's wonderful." "Is it?" Brielle asked. "I mean, he's my boss. This could get messy." "Life is messy," her mother said. "But that doesn't mean you should run from something good. This man clearly cares about you. And you care about him. Don't let fear stop you from being happy." After they hung up, Brielle got ready for bed, but sleep was impossible. Her mind was racing, replaying every moment of the evening. The dinner with Gabriel's father. The confession in the car. The kisses. It all felt like a dream. But it wasn't a dream. It was real. Gabriel Foster, the man she'd saved from a flood, the man who'd given her a new life, had feelings for her. And she had feelings for him. They were going to try this, whatever this was. Brielle finally fell asleep with a smile on her face, excited for tomorrow and whatever came next. For the first time in her life, she was letting hope lead the way. And it felt amazing. The office knew about them within a week. Not because Brielle and Gabriel were obvious, they tried to maintain professionalism at work, but because people noticed the little things. The way Gabriel smiled when Brielle walked into a room. The way Brielle's eyes lit up when she talked about him. The fact that Gabriel suddenly started leaving work at reasonable hours instead of staying until midnight. To their credit, most people seemed happy for them. Monica gave Brielle a knowing smile and a thumbs up. Justin made a joke about Gabriel finally having something in his life besides work. Even Rachel pulled Brielle aside to say that she approved, that Gabriel deserved happiness, and Brielle seemed to bring that out in him. But there were a few people who weren't thrilled. Some of the older executives whispered about impropriety. A few people made snide comments about Brielle sleeping her way to success. It stung even though Brielle knew it wasn't true. She'd earned her position before any romantic feelings developed. Gabriel was furious when he heard about the gossip. He called a meeting with his senior leadership team and made it clear that he wouldn't tolerate any disrespect toward Brielle. She was a valued employee who'd earned her position through hard work, and their personal relationship was nobody's business but theirs. The gossip died down after that, but Brielle was still aware of the whispers sometimes. She tried not to let it bother her. She knew the truth. That was what mattered. Her relationship with Gabriel continued to deepen. They spent evenings together, cooking dinner at her apartment or his penthouse. She learned that he was terrible at cooking anything more complicated than toast, so she taught him basic recipes. He learned that she had a weakness for old romantic comedies, so he endured hours of Hugh Grant movies without complaint. They talked about everything. Gabriel shared stories about building his company, the risks he'd taken, the failures he'd learned from. Brielle shared her dreams of finishing her degree and maybe starting her own business someday. Gabriel encouraged her, never doubting for a moment that she could do it. One Saturday, Gabriel surprised her with tickets to a classical music concert. "You mentioned once that you'd never been to a live orchestra," he said. "I thought we could change that." The concert was beautiful. Brielle had never heard music like that before, live and powerful and moving. She found herself tearing up during a particularly emotional piece, and Gabriel reached over to hold her hand, understanding without words. Afterward, they walked through the city talking about the music and life and everything in between. It was a perfect night, the kind that felt like it belonged in a movie. "I've never been this happy," Gabriel confessed as they stood on a bridge overlooking the river. "I didn't know I could be this happy." "Me neither," Brielle said, leaning against him. "I keep waiting for something to go wrong." "Nothing's going to go wrong," Gabriel said, wrapping his arm around her. "We're going to be okay. Better than okay." But Brielle couldn't quite shake the feeling that they were living in a bubble, and bubbles always popped eventually. Still, she pushed the worry aside and focused on the present, on the feel of Gabriel's arm around her and the lights reflecting on the water. As the weeks passed, they grew more comfortable with each other. Gabriel told her about his lonely childhood, about parents who cared more about appearances than affection. Brielle told him about her father, who'd left when she was young, and how her mother had worked herself to exhaustion to provide for them. "That's why you work so hard," Gabriel realized. "You learned it from your mother." "I guess so," Brielle said. "She always said that the only thing you really own is your work ethic. Everything else can be taken away." "She's right," Gabriel said. "But she's also wrong. Love can't be taken away. Not if it's real." They were lying in his penthouse living room, Brielle's head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. It was a lazy Sunday afternoon, and they had nowhere to be. These were Brielle's favorite moments, when it was just the two of them with no work or obligations or expectations. "Tell me about the flood," Gabriel said suddenly. "What was going through your mind when you jumped in?" Brielle had known this question would come eventually. She'd been avoiding thinking too deeply about it, but Gabriel deserved an honest answer. "I was terrified," she admitted. "I've never been that scared in my life. But I saw you going under and I knew nobody else was going to help. And I thought about my mom, about how she always taught me to help people when you can. So I just did it. I didn't think about dying. I just thought about getting you out." Gabriel's arm tightened around her. "I think about it all the time. About how close we both came to dying that night. About how different everything would be if you hadn't been there. But I was there," Brielle said. "And we're here now. That's what matters." "You're right," Gabriel said. He was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Do you ever regret it? Saving me, I mean. Your life got really complicated after that." "Never," Brielle said firmly, lifting her head to look at him. "Not for 1 second. Yes, things changed. But they changed for the better. I have a job I love, friends I care about, and you. I'd do it all again in a heartbeat." Gabriel pulled her up and kissed her, deep and passionate. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. "I love you," Gabriel said. "I should have said it weeks ago, but I was scared. I've never felt this way about anyone and it terrified me. But I can't keep it in anymore. I love you, Brielle Johnson. Completely and totally." Brielle felt tears spring to her eyes. "I love you too. So much." They kissed again, and this time it was different. It was a promise, a commitment, a future taking shape. They'd both been alone for so long, protecting their hearts, building walls. But somehow they'd found each other. And they'd been brave enough to let those walls come down. The rest of the day passed in a haze of happiness. They cooked dinner together, laughing when Gabriel nearly set the kitchen on fire trying to sauté vegetables. They watched a movie, though neither paid much attention to the plot. They talked about the future, about dreams and plans and possibilities. "I want to meet your mother," Gabriel said. "Officially, I mean. I want her to know that my intentions are serious." "My intentions are serious?" Brielle teased. "Who even says that?" "I do," Gabriel said, grinning. "I'm serious about you. About us. I want your mother to know that I'm not just some rich guy playing around. I'm in this for real." "She already likes you," Brielle said. "But I think she'd love to meet you in person." They made plans for Gabriel to visit Brielle's mother the following weekend. Brielle was nervous about it but also excited. Her mother was the most important person in her life. Having Gabriel meet her felt significant, like making their relationship official in a way that mattered. The week flew by in a blur of work and stolen moments. They were careful at the office, maintaining professionalism, but everyone could see the change in them. Gabriel was lighter, more relaxed. Brielle was more confident, more sure of herself. They brought out the best in each other. Friday evening, they drove to Brielle's hometown, a small city 2 hours away. Brielle's mother lived in a modest apartment in a neighborhood that had seen better days. Brielle felt a twinge of embarrassment as Gabriel pulled up, comparing this to his penthouse or his childhood mansion. But if Gabriel noticed the difference, he didn't show it. Her mother was waiting at the door, a warm smile on her face. She was a beautiful woman in her 50s, with the same dark skin and kind eyes as Brielle. She pulled Brielle into a tight hug, then turned to Gabriel. "So you're the man my daughter saved," she said. "That's me," Gabriel said, offering his hand. "Thank you for raising such an incredible daughter, Mrs. Johnson." "Call me Patricia," Brielle's mother said, shaking his hand. "And you're welcome." But Brielle raised herself mostly. "I just tried to keep up." They went inside and Patricia served dinner, simple but delicious home cooking that Gabriel praised enthusiastically. They talked for hours, Patricia telling embarrassing stories about Brielle's childhood while Brielle protested laughingly. Gabriel fit in perfectly, helping with dishes and asking Patricia thoughtful questions about her work as a nurse. Later, while Brielle was in the bathroom, Gabriel and Patricia talked alone in the kitchen. "I love your daughter," Gabriel said quietly. "I want you to know that. This isn't casual for me. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me." Patricia studied him carefully. "She told me you're a good man. I can see she was right. But my daughter's been through a lot in her life. Don't break her heart." "I won't," Gabriel promised. "I'd rather cut off my own arm than hurt her." Patricia nodded, satisfied. "Then you have my blessing. Not that you needed it. Brielle makes her own decisions. But I'm glad she chose you." When Brielle came back, she could tell something had passed between Gabriel and her mother. Both looked pleased and the atmosphere was warm and comfortable. They stayed until late, reluctant to end the evening. Finally, Patricia shooed them out, saying she had an early shift the next morning. She hugged them both, holding on to Brielle a little longer. "You deserve this happiness," she whispered to Brielle. "Don't be afraid of it." On the drive home, Brielle felt a contentment she'd never experienced before. The two people she loved most in the world had met and liked each other. Her life was falling into place in ways she'd never dared to dream. "Your mother is amazing," Gabriel said. "I can see where you get your strength from." "She likes you," Brielle said. "That's not easy to accomplish. She's very protective of me." "As she should be," Gabriel said. He reached over and took Brielle's hand. "I meant what I told her. I love you. And I'm in this for the long haul." "Me too," Brielle said, squeezing his hand. They drove through the night, both thinking about the future and all the possibilities it held. They'd found each other in the most unexpected way, brought together by a flood that had almost killed them both. But from that tragedy had come something beautiful. Something real. Something worth fighting for. And they were both ready to see where this love would take them. Life settled into a wonderful rhythm over the next few months. Brielle enrolled in evening business classes at a local university, using Foster Industries' tuition reimbursement program. Gabriel adjusted her work schedule to accommodate her classes, insisting she focus on her education. She was grateful but also determined to prove she could handle both work and school without special treatment. She excelled at both. Her professors praised her work ethic and intelligence. Gabriel continued to rely on her at work, valuing her opinions and input on business decisions. Their professional relationship grew alongside their personal one, each complementing the other. They'd fallen into easy domesticity. Some nights Brielle stayed at Gabriel's penthouse, cooking dinner while he worked on his laptop. Other nights he came to her apartment, bringing takeout and helping her study for exams. They'd become partners in every sense of the word. But Brielle was aware that they'd been existing in a bubble. Their relationship, while acknowledged, hadn't been publicly announced. They were careful at company events, maintaining appropriate boundaries. Gabriel's family, aside from his sister who adored Brielle, remained a closed door. And they hadn't talked about long-term plans, both seemingly content to live in the present. That changed on a rainy Tuesday evening. Brielle was at Gabriel's penthouse, having finished her classes early. She was making pasta when Gabriel came home looking exhausted. His tie was loose, his shirt wrinkled, and his hair messier than usual. He dropped his briefcase by the door and came straight to the kitchen, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Rough day?" Brielle asked, leaning back against him. "The worst," Gabriel said into her hair. "Investors asking impossible questions. Board members second-guessing every decision. My father calling to criticize how I'm running the company. I'm exhausted." "Go sit down," Brielle said, turning to face him. "Dinner will be ready in 10 minutes. Then you can tell me everything." Gabriel kissed her forehead and went to change out of his suit. When he came back, wearing comfortable clothes and looking slightly more human, Brielle had set the table and was serving the pasta. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, Gabriel clearly too tired to talk. But gradually he started opening up about his day. The difficult investors. The tension with the board. The pressure to expand faster, take bigger risks, prioritize profits over people. "I didn't build this company to squeeze every last dollar out of it," Gabriel said, frustration evident in his voice. "I built it to make a difference. To create technology that helps people. But sometimes I feel like I'm the only one who remembers that." "You're not," Brielle said. "Your employees remember. The people your charity helps remember." "I remember." Gabriel looked at her, something shifting in his expression. "You always know what to say. How do you do that?" "I just tell you the truth," Brielle said simply. Gabriel was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. Then he said, "Move in with me." Brielle blinked, caught off guard. "What?" "Move in with me," Gabriel repeated. "You're here most nights anyway. And I love having you here. I love waking up next to you. I love coming home to you. So move in officially. Make this your home too." Brielle's heart was racing. This was a big step. Living together meant commitment, meant planning a future together. It meant trusting that this relationship was real and lasting. "Are you sure?" she asked. "I've never been more sure of anything," Gabriel said. "I love you, Brielle. I want to build a life with you. This seems like a good place to start." Brielle thought about her small apartment, about the life she'd built there on her own. She'd been proud of that independence, of making her own way. But she was also proud of what she and Gabriel had built together. And she wanted more of it. More mornings waking up beside him. More evenings cooking together. More nights falling asleep in his arms. "Okay," she said, smiling. "Yes. I'll move in with you." Gabriel's face lit up. He stood up, pulled her to her feet and spun her around, both of them laughing. When he set her down, he cupped her face and kissed her deeply. "You've made me so happy," he said against her lips. "You've made me happy too," Brielle said. They spent the rest of the evening making plans. Which furniture Brielle would bring, which she'd donate. How they'd merge their lives logistically. What they'd do with the extra room in the penthouse that Brielle could use as a home office for studying. It felt right. Natural. Like this was always where they'd been heading. Over the next few weeks, Brielle moved her belongings into Gabriel's penthouse. It was strange at first, adjusting to the luxury of his home, the space and the view and the expense of everything. But Gabriel made sure she felt comfortable, giving her free rein to change anything she wanted, to make it feel like their space, not just his. Brielle added personal touches. Plants in the living room. Photos of her mother on the bookshelf. Her favorite throw blankets on the couch. Gradually, the penthouse transformed from a bachelor pad into a home. Work continued smoothly. If anyone at Foster Industries had opinions about them living together, they kept it to themselves. Brielle maintained her professionalism, working hard and never asking for special treatment. Gabriel made sure everyone knew that Brielle's position was based on merit, not their relationship. One evening, about a month after Brielle moved in, they were sitting on the balcony of the penthouse, watching the city lights. Brielle was studying for a midterm while Gabriel worked on a presentation. It was peaceful and domestic, two people building a life together. "Can I tell you something?" Gabriel said suddenly. Brielle looked up from her textbook. "Of course." Gabriel set aside his laptop and turned to face her. "When I was in that flood, when I was going under, I had this moment of clarity. I realized that my whole life had been empty. I had money and success and respect, but I didn't have connection. I didn't have love. I didn't have anything real. And I thought, if this is how I die, what a waste. Brielle reached out and took his hand, sensing this was important. Then you pulled me out, Gabriel continued. And at first I was just grateful to be alive. But then I got to know you, really know you, and I realized you'd given me more than just my life back. You'd given me a reason to live. A reason to be better. You made everything make sense. Gabriel, Brielle said softly, tears in her eyes. I'm not done, Gabriel said, smiling. I've been thinking about the future. About what I want, what we want. And I know we've only been together for a few months, but Brielle, I've never been more certain of anything. I want to spend my life with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to build a family with you. I want everything. Brielle's heart was pounding. Was he saying what she thought he was saying? Gabriel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Brielle's breath caught. I know this might seem fast, Gabriel said. But when you know, you know. And I know that you're it for me. You're the person I want beside me through everything. So, Brielle Johnson, will you marry me? He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, simple but elegant, exactly her style. Brielle was crying now, happy tears streaming down her face. She thought about the night of the flood, about jumping into that water without hesitation. She'd saved Gabriel's life, and in doing so, he'd transformed hers. They'd been through so much together already, building trust and love and a future. And now he was offering her forever. Yes, she said, laughing through her tears. Yes, of course I'll marry you. Gabriel's smile was brighter than the city lights as he slipped the ring onto her finger. Then he pulled her into his arms and kissed her, deep and passionate and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both were grinning like idiots. We're engaged, Brielle said, looking down at the ring on her finger in wonder. We're engaged, Gabriel confirmed, pulling her close again. They sat on the balcony for hours, making plans and dreaming about the future. They talked about a wedding, something small and intimate with just close family and friends. They talked about continuing their charitable work together. They talked about the life they'd build, the love they'd share, the family they'd create. Brielle called her mother, who cried happy tears and demanded to know every detail. Gabriel called his sister, who screamed with excitement and immediately started planning engagement parties. As the night grew late, they went inside, still holding hands, both floating on happiness. Brielle looked around the penthouse at the life they'd built together, and felt overwhelming gratitude. A year ago, she'd been struggling to make rent, working double shifts, wondering if things would ever get better. Now she was engaged to a man who loved her deeply, working a job she enjoyed, pursuing her education, living a life she'd only dreamed about. And it had all started with a split-second decision to help someone in need. What are you thinking about? Gabriel asked, noticing her reflective expression. Just how much can change in a few months, Brielle said. How one moment can alter your entire life. That flood changed everything, Gabriel agreed. It brought us together. It did more than that, Brielle said. It taught us what really matters. Well, kindness. Being there for each other. Everything else is just noise. Gabriel pulled her close, resting his chin on top of her head. I love you so much. I love you too, Brielle said. They stood like that for a long time, just holding each other, thinking about the future and all the beautiful possibilities it held. They'd found each other in the middle of a disaster, and from that chaos had come the greatest love either of them had ever known. Tomorrow they'd tell everyone their news. Tomorrow they'd start planning their wedding. Tomorrow they'd take the next steps toward their future together. But tonight, they just held each other, grateful for every moment that had led them here. Grateful for floods and second chances and the courage to jump in when someone needed help. Grateful for love that was real and deep and lasting. Grateful for each other. The weather forecast appeared on every screen, every channel, impossible to ignore. Another massive storm system was approaching the city, bigger than the one that had caused the devastating flood months ago. Meteorologists spoke in urgent tones about record rainfall predictions, about overwhelmed drainage systems, about evacuation orders for low-lying areas. The city was preparing for the worst. Brielle watched the news with growing anxiety, memories of the first flood flooding back. She remembered the rising water, the terror of drowning, the desperate fight to save Gabriel. She'd thought that chapter of her life was closed, but apparently the storm had other plans. Gabriel was in crisis mode. As one of the city's most prominent business leaders and philanthropists, he was on multiple emergency response committees. His phone rang constantly with calls from city officials, charity organizations, and business partners asking for resources and coordination. "We need to evacuate our downtown offices," Gabriel said, pacing the penthouse living room while on a conference call. "Move all critical operations to the satellite location." "Yes, I understand the cost. I don't care. People's safety comes first." Brielle listened to him handle call after call, watching him transform into the decisive leader the city needed. But she also saw the tension in his shoulders, the worry in his eyes. This was personal for him too. The flood had almost killed him. Now another one was coming. "What can I do to help?" Brielle asked when he finally ended a call. "You could evacuate," Gabriel said. "Go to your mother's. Get out of the city. This storm is going to be bad, Brielle. Worse than last time." "I'm not leaving," Brielle said firmly. "There are people who need help. I can coordinate volunteers, organize supplies, do something useful. I'm staying." Gabriel looked like he wanted to argue, but he knew her well enough to know it wouldn't work. "Okay. But promise me you'll be careful. If things get bad, if the flood gets serious, you get to high ground immediately. Promise me." "I promise," Brielle said, crossing the room to hug him. "We'll get through this. Together." The storm hit 2 days later, just after dawn. The rain started slowly, then built to a torrential downpour that turned streets into rivers within hours. The city's emergency sirens wailed constantly. People rushed to evacuate, cars clogging the highways. The subway system shut down to prevent flooding. Schools and businesses closed. The city held its breath and waited. Gabriel went to Foster Industries' Emergency Command Center, coordinating his company's response efforts. Brielle joined a volunteer coordination center in a high-rise building, helping organize rescue teams and supply distribution. They'd said goodbye that morning, both knowing it might be hours or days before they saw each other again. "I love you," Gabriel had said, holding her close. "Be safe." "I love you too," Brielle had replied. "Come back to me." The volunteer center was chaos. Phones rang constantly. Radios crackled with emergency updates. Volunteers rushed in and out, organizing supplies and coordinating rescues. Brielle threw herself into the work, using her organizational skills to help manage the overwhelming task of helping thousands of people. She coordinated with emergency responders, directing volunteers to areas that needed help. She organized supply runs, making sure rescue teams had what they needed. She answered calls from frantic families looking for missing loved ones. It was exhausting and heartbreaking, but also necessary. Hours passed in a blur. The rain continued, relentless. Water levels rose throughout the city. Reports came in of people trapped in buildings, cars swept away, neighborhoods completely submerged. It was the first flood all over again, but bigger, more devastating. Brielle tried to call Gabriel multiple times, but the cell networks were overloaded. She sent text messages that went undelivered. She tried not to panic, telling herself he was fine, he was in a secure building surrounded by people. He knew how to stay safe. But as the day wore on and the storm intensified, her worry grew. Then, around 4 in the afternoon, her phone finally connected. But it wasn't Gabriel calling. It was Monica. "Brielle," Monica said, her voice tight with stress. "We have a problem. The emergency command center is flooding. The building's basement filled with water, and it's compromising the structure. We need to evacuate, but Gabriel won't leave. He's insisting on staying until we've coordinated all the rescue operations." Brielle's heart stopped. "Put him on the phone." "He won't stop long enough to take calls," Monica said. "Brielle, you need to get down here. You're the only person he might actually listen to." "What's the address?" Brielle asked, already grabbing her coat. Monica gave her the address, then added, "Be careful. The streets are bad. Really bad." Brielle hung up and looked around the volunteer center. The coordinator, a retired fire chief named Thomas, noticed her expression. "You need to go somewhere," he said, not asking. "Yes," Brielle said. "Gabriel's in trouble. He won't evacuate a flooding building." Thomas nodded. "Go. We've got this covered here. But Brielle, don't do anything stupid. I know you saved someone last time, but you might not get lucky twice." "I'll be careful," Brielle promised, though she wasn't sure it was a promise she could keep. She left the building and stepped into a nightmare. The rain was so heavy she could barely see 10 feet ahead. Water rushed down streets in powerful currents. Abandoned cars sat submerged up to their windows. The city looked like it was being swallowed by the storm. Brielle started walking, staying on higher ground when possible, wading through water when necessary. The emergency command center was only a mile away, but it felt like 1,000. Every step was a fight against the current. Her clothes were soaked within minutes. Her shoes filled with water, making each step harder. But she kept going. Gabriel needed her. He'd saved her life in so many ways since they met. Now it was her turn to save his. She thought about the night they met, about pulling him from the flood. She thought about everything that had happened since. The job. The friendship. The love. The engagement. All of it had started with her deciding to help someone in need. And that's what she was doing now. Helping the person she loved most in the world. The journey took almost an hour, but finally she saw the emergency command center building ahead. It was a mid-rise office building, and she could see water streaming out of the ground floor entrance. People were evacuating, carrying equipment and files, moving in organized chaos. Brielle pushed her way inside, fighting against the flow of people leaving. The lobby was flooded, water up to her knees. Volunteers and emergency workers moved quickly, securing important equipment, helping evacuate personnel. "Where's Gabriel Foster?" she shouted to a woman carrying a box of supplies. "Third floor," the woman yelled back. "Conference room. But you shouldn't go up there. The building's not stable." Brielle didn't listen. She headed for the stairs, climbing quickly, her wet shoes squelching with each step. The building groaned around her, and she could feel vibrations through the floor. The woman was right. This building wasn't safe. She reached the third floor and found the conference room easily. Inside, Gabriel was surrounded by monitors and maps, coordinating rescue operations over multiple phone lines. Monica was there, along with several city officials and emergency coordinators. "Gabriel," Brielle said from the doorway. He looked up and his face went pale. "Brielle? What are you doing here? You shouldn't be in this building." "Neither should you," Brielle said, walking into the room. "Monica called me. Said you wouldn't evacuate." "I can't," Gabriel said. "There are still people out there who need help. Rescue's being coordinated. We can't just leave." "You have to," Brielle said firmly. "This building is flooding. It's not safe. You've done everything you can from here. Now you need to save yourself." Gabriel looked torn. She could see him struggling between his sense of responsibility and basic self-preservation. Around them, the other people in the room were watching this exchange with interest. "Transfer the operations to another location," Brielle said to Monica. "Can you do that?" "Already in progress," Monica said. "We're setting up at the university campus. It's on high ground and has all the tech infrastructure we need. But Gabriel won't leave until everything's transferred." "Then let's finish the transfer," Brielle said. "Now. Quickly." What followed was a tense 20 minutes of frantic coordination. They transferred control of rescue operations to the new command center. They packed up essential equipment. They made sure every ongoing rescue had a primary and backup coordinator. Gabriel worked with singular focus, refusing to leave until every detail was handled. Finally Monica said, "That's it. We're done. Everything's transferred. We need to go now." The building groaned again, louder this time. Everyone in the room froze. "Move," Gabriel said, suddenly galvanized into action. "Everyone out. Now." They grabbed what they could carry and rushed for the stairs. Brielle stayed close to Gabriel as they descended. The water in the lobby had risen even higher, now chest-deep in the lowest areas. They waded through carefully, helping each other maintain balance against the current. Outside, the scene was even worse than before. The rain continued its assault. The street was completely submerged. Emergency boats moved through what used to be intersections, rescuing stranded people. "We need to get to higher ground," Gabriel said, his arm around Brielle. "The university is about 2 miles north. We can make it if we're careful." They started walking, the group staying together for safety. The water was dangerous, hiding obstacles and creating treacherous currents. Several times, someone stumbled and had to be caught by others. They moved slowly, carefully, helping each other. Brielle stayed close to Gabriel, their fingers intertwined. She kept thinking about the first flood, about how she'd found him in the water. Now here they were again, fighting the same enemy. But this time they were together, and that made all the difference. They'd been walking for about 30 minutes when Brielle heard it. A scream, high-pitched and terrified, coming from a building to their right. She stopped, listening. "Did you hear that?" she asked Gabriel. "Hear what?" he said, then stopped. Another scream, clearer this time. "Someone's trapped," Brielle said, already moving toward the building. "Brielle, wait," Gabriel called, but she was already wading through the deep water toward the entrance. The building was a small apartment complex, and the front door was partially submerged. Brielle pushed it open and looked inside. The lobby was flooded, but she could see stairs leading up. The screaming was coming from above. "Help," a voice called. "Please, someone help us." Brielle didn't hesitate. She plunged into the building, climbing the stairs toward the voice. She could hear Gabriel behind her, following despite his own fear. They found them on the second floor. A family. A mother, father, and 2 young children huddled in a hallway, terrified. Water was seeping up from below, gradually filling the floor. "Thank God," the mother said when she saw them. "We didn't evacuate in time. The water rose so fast. We're trapped." "We'll get you out," Brielle promised. "Follow us." Quickly. They helped the family down the stairs, Gabriel carrying the younger child while Brielle helped the older one. The parents followed, the mother crying with relief. They made it to the lobby, then out into the flooded street where the rest of their group was waiting anxiously. Monica had flagged down an emergency boat. "Come on," she called. "They can take everyone to high ground." They helped the family into the boat first, then the rest of the group climbed aboard. The boat operator, a volunteer rescue worker, navigated carefully through the flooded streets toward the university campus. As they rowed, Gabriel put his arm around Brielle, pulling her close. She was shaking, whether from cold or adrenaline she wasn't sure. "You did it again," Gabriel said quietly. "Ran toward danger when everyone else was running away." "They needed help," Brielle said simply. "That family. They needed someone. And you were there," Gabriel said. "Just like you were there for me." They reached the university campus as the sun was setting, though the thick clouds made it feel like night had already fallen. The new command center was up and running, and Gabriel immediately got back to work coordinating rescue efforts. But this time Brielle noticed he made sure to take breaks. To drink water and eat something. To check in with her regularly. The storm raged for another 12 hours before finally breaking. By morning the rain had stopped, and the water levels began to slowly recede. The damage was catastrophic. Entire neighborhoods were flooded. Thousands of people were displaced. The recovery would take months, maybe years. But they'd made it through. Together. Brielle and Gabriel worked for 2 more days straight, coordinating relief efforts, organizing volunteers, helping where they could. They barely slept, functioning on adrenaline and coffee. But gradually the crisis phase passed and long-term recovery efforts began. On the 3rd morning after the storm, they finally went back to Gabriel's penthouse. It had survived unscathed, being high above the flood zone. They walked in, both exhausted beyond measure, and just stood in the living room for a moment. "We made it," Gabriel said. "We made it," Brielle echoed. Then, without another word, they both collapsed on the couch, still in their dirty, damp clothes, and fell asleep in each other's arms. The city slowly came back to life over the following weeks. Water receded from streets and buildings. Cleanup crews worked around the clock. Foster Industries led major recovery efforts, with Gabriel personally overseeing multiple relief programs. He donated millions to rebuilding efforts, but more importantly, he donated his time and energy, working alongside volunteers to help families rebuild their homes and lives. Brielle was right there with him, coordinating volunteers and organizing supply distribution. She'd taken a temporary leave from her regular assistant duties to focus on flood relief, and Gabriel had supported the decision completely. This was more important than meetings and calendars. They worked together every day, and their relationship deepened even further through the shared experience. They'd faced disaster twice now, and both times they'd emerged stronger. Their love had been tested by crisis and had proven unshakable. 1 month after the second flood, things began returning to normal. Businesses reopened. Schools resumed classes. The city started looking forward instead of just surviving day to day. And Brielle and Gabriel finally had time to think about their own future again. They were having breakfast on the penthouse balcony when Gabriel brought it up. "We should set a date for the wedding." Brielle smiled. They'd been so busy with recovery efforts that the engagement had almost felt like a dream. She looked down at her ring, still bright and beautiful on her finger, proof that it was real. "When were you thinking?" she asked. "Soon," Gabriel said. "I don't want to wait. I want to marry you, make it official, start our life together as husband and wife." "I want that too," Brielle said. She thought for a moment. "What about 3 months from now? That gives us time to plan something small and intimate, but doesn't feel like forever." "Perfect," Gabriel said, grinning. 3 months. I'll marry you in 3 months." They spent the morning making plans. They both wanted something small, just close family and friends. Maybe in a garden or a small chapel. Nothing flashy or extravagant. Just a celebration of their love surrounded by the people who mattered most. Gabriel's sister, Miranda, was thrilled when they told her. She immediately appointed herself wedding planner, insisting that while they wanted simple, it should still be beautiful. Brielle's mother cried happy tears over the phone, saying she'd never seen her daughter so happy. The news spread quickly at Foster Industries. Their co-workers showered them with congratulations. Even the few people who'd been skeptical about their relationship seemed genuinely happy for them. Monica organized an engagement party at the office, complete with cake and champagne and heartfelt toasts. To Brielle and Gabriel, Monica said, raising her glass, who proved that true love still exists. May your marriage be as strong as the courage you've both shown. Congratulations. Everyone cheered, and Brielle felt overwhelmed with gratitude. These people had become her family. This place had become her home. And it had all started with one act of bravery in a flood. As the weeks passed and the wedding approached, Brielle finished her semester with top grades in all her classes. Her professors encouraged her to continue, saying she had real talent for business management. Gabriel beamed with pride when she showed him her report card, insisting they celebrate with a nice dinner. "I'm so proud of you," he said over wine and pasta at their favorite Italian restaurant. "You're amazing. Brilliant. I can't wait to see what you accomplish." "I couldn't have done it without you," Brielle said. "Your support, the tuition reimbursement, the flexible schedule. You made this possible." "No," Gabriel said firmly. "You made this possible. I just gave you an opportunity. You did the hard work." Brielle smiled, accepting the compliment. She'd learned to do that since meeting Gabriel. To accept praise and help and good things without constantly feeling unworthy. He'd taught her that. 2 weeks before the wedding, Gabriel surprised her with another gesture. He'd established a scholarship fund in her name, providing full tuition and living expenses for students from low-income backgrounds who wanted to pursue business degrees. "You believe in education and helping people," Gabriel explained when he showed her the paperwork. "This scholarship will help people the way Foster Industries helped you. And it's in your name because you inspire it." Brielle cried, overwhelmed by his thoughtfulness. "This is incredible. Thank you." "Thank you," Gabriel said, "for being exactly who you are. For showing me what really matters in life." The scholarship was just one of many changes Gabriel had implemented since the floods. He'd restructured Foster Industries to prioritize social responsibility alongside profits. He'd increased charitable giving and established multiple programs to help communities affected by natural disasters. He credited Brielle with inspiring these changes, but she knew it was just him becoming the man he'd always wanted to be. Finally, the wedding day arrived. It was a perfect spring morning, sunny and warm with a gentle breeze. The ceremony was held in a small garden venue, with flowers blooming everywhere and birds singing in the trees. Only 50 guests were invited, close friends and family only. Brielle wore a simple but elegant white dress, her hair styled in soft curls. She carried a bouquet of red roses. She'd never felt more beautiful. Her mother helped her get ready, tears in her eyes the whole time. "You look stunning, baby. I'm so proud of you." "Thanks, Mom," Brielle said, hugging her carefully so as not to wrinkle the dress. "For everything. For raising me right. For teaching me kindness and courage. None of this would have happened without you. You did this yourself," her mother said. "By being brave enough to jump in that water. By being true to yourself. I just tried to point you in the right direction." When it was time, Brielle's mother walked her down the aisle. There was no father to do the honor, so her mother had stepped up, just like she'd stepped up for everything else in Brielle's life. Brielle was grateful for her presence, for her steady support. At the end of the aisle stood Gabriel, looking impossibly handsome in a dark suit with a blue tie that matched his eyes. When he saw Brielle, his face lit up with such joy that she almost started crying right then. The ceremony was short and sweet. They'd written their own vows, wanting the words to be personal and meaningful. Gabriel went first. "Brielle, you saved my life in more ways than one. You pulled me from the flood, yes. But you also pulled me from a life that was empty and lonely and focused on all the wrong things. You taught me about courage and kindness and love. You showed me what really matters. I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of you. I promise to love you through every storm and every sunny day. I promise to be your partner, your friend, your home. I love you with everything I am." Brielle's turn. She took a deep breath, looking into Gabriel's eyes. "Gabriel, when I jumped into that water to save you, I had no idea I was also saving myself. You gave me opportunities one never dreamed of. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You showed me what real love looks like. I promise to stand by you always. I promise to be brave when you need courage and steady when you need support. I promise to love you completely, through everything life throws at us. Thank you for choosing me. I choose you too. Forever." By the time they finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the garden. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife, and Gabriel kissed Brielle deeply while everyone cheered. The reception was joyful and relaxed. Good food, good music, good people. Brielle danced with Gabriel, with her mother, with Monica and Miranda and Justin. She laughed until her cheeks hurt. She felt light and free and happier than she'd ever been. During a slow dance, Gabriel whispered in her ear, "Mrs. Foster." Brielle smiled. "I could get used to that." "You better," Gabriel teased. "You're stuck with me now." "Best decision I ever made," Brielle said, pulling him closer. As the evening wound down, they cut the cake, a simple but delicious creation made by a local baker they'd helped after the flood. They toasted with champagne, surrounded by people who loved them. They thanked everyone for coming, for supporting them, for being part of their story. Finally, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Gabriel pulled Brielle aside. "I have one more surprise for you." "Another one?" Brielle asked, laughing. "You've already given me so much." "This one's from both of us," Gabriel said. "Remember how we talked about wanting to make a lasting difference? About using our resources to help people?" "Yes," Brielle said, curious. Gabriel pulled out his phone and showed her a website. "I registered a foundation today. The Johnson Foster Foundation. Its mission is to provide disaster relief and help families rebuild after natural disasters. We'll fund it together, run it together. It'll be our legacy." Brielle read the website, tears streaming down her face. This was perfect. This was everything she believed in, made real and permanent. "It's named for both of us?" she asked. "Of course," Gabriel said. "We're partners. Equal partners. This is our mission together." Brielle threw her arms around him, not caring that she was crying or that people were watching. "I love you so much. This is perfect. We're going to help so many people." "That's the plan," Gabriel said, holding her tight. "We're going to turn our worst moment into something good. We're going to make sure that when disasters strike, families have help. That nobody has to face those floods alone." They stood like that for a long time, holding each other, thinking about the future and all the good they would do together. Later that night, back at the penthouse, which was now decorated with flowers from the wedding, they stood on the balcony looking out at the city. The same city where they'd met. The same streets where Brielle had jumped into floodwaters to save a drowning stranger. The same place where their love story had begun. "Thank you," Gabriel said suddenly. "For what?" Brielle asked. "For jumping," Gabriel said simply. "For not hesitating. For being brave enough to save me." "Thank you for letting me," Brielle said. "For accepting help. For recognizing that sometimes we all need someone." "We do," Gabriel agreed. "Everyone needs someone. And I'm so glad I have you." They kissed under the stars, husband and wife now, partners in life, in love and purpose. The future stretched out before them, full of possibility. They would run their foundation together, helping families recover from disasters. Brielle would finish her degree and maybe go for a master's. Gabriel would continue leading Foster Industries while prioritizing what really mattered. They'd build a family, fill their home with love and laughter. They'd face whatever challenges came their way together. But most of all, they'd remember the lessons the floods had taught them. That life can change in an instant. That courage means acting even when you're afraid. That kindness is never wasted. That love is worth fighting for. That when someone needs help, you don't hesitate. You just jump in. "What are you thinking about?" Gabriel asked, noticing Brielle's reflective expression. "Just how perfect this is," Brielle said. "How everything led us here. The flood, the job, falling in love, all of it. It's like we were always meant to find each other." "We were," Gabriel said confidently. "I believe that. The universe put us on that street at that exact moment for a reason. You were meant to save me. I was meant to love you. This was always our story." "I like that," Brielle said, leaning against him. "I like thinking we were meant to be." "We were," Gabriel repeated. "And we are. Forever." They stayed on the balcony until late, talking about their honeymoon plans and their foundation ideas and their dreams for the future. Eventually they went inside, exhausted but happy, ready to begin their married life. As Brielle got ready for bed, she looked at herself in the mirror. She was still the same person who'd worked double shifts at a diner. Still the same person who'd jumped into floodwaters without thinking twice. But she was also different. Stronger. More confident. More sure of her place in the world. Gabriel came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. They looked at their reflection together, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way. "I love you, Mrs. Foster," Gabriel said. "I love you too, Mr. Foster," Brielle replied. They climbed into bed together, exhausted from the long day. As Brielle drifted off to sleep in Gabriel's arms, she thought about the journey that had brought them here. From that terrifying flood to this perfect moment. From strangers to lovers to husband and wife. It had been the adventure of a lifetime. And it was just beginning. Years later, people would ask Brielle about that night in the flood. They'd ask if she regretted jumping in, if she'd been scared, if she'd known what would happen. And she'd always give the same answer. "I did what anyone should do when they see someone who needs help. I jumped in. And yes, it changed my life. But not because of the rewards or the job or even the love, though those were all wonderful. It changed my life because it reminded me who I am. Someone who helps. Someone who cares. Someone brave enough to take the leap when it matters most. That's who I was before Gabriel. That's who I am with him. And that's who I'll always be." And Gabriel, listening to his wife tell their story for the 100th time, would smile and think about how lucky he was. Not because Brielle saved his life, though she had. Not because she was beautiful and smart and successful, though she was all those things. But because she taught him the most important lesson of all. Love isn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It's about being there. It's about jumping in when someone needs you. It's about building a life together, one day at a time, based on kindness and hope and unwavering support. The Johnson Foster Foundation would go on to help thousands of families recover from natural disasters. Brielle would finish her degree and eventually become co-CEO of Foster Industries alongside her husband. They'd have 2 children who would grow up learning about courage and compassion. They'd face challenges and setbacks because life always has those. But they'd face them together, never forgetting the flood that brought them together and the lessons it taught. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, they'd stand on their balcony and look out at the city, remembering the rain and the water and the fear. Remembering the moment their eyes first met. Remembering the love that grew from a single act of courage. And they'd hold each other close and be grateful. For floods and second chances. For love that was tested and proven strong. For a life built on kindness and hope. For each other. Always and forever.